Retirement Compass Radio Show is on the air. On the air. On the air. I don't get any echoes from you. I thought you were going to put an echo on my mic.
No.
Tim Kulhanek.
Yes.
From Stonebridge, Lincoln office. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. And yourself?
Good. Stonebridge Wealth Systems puts this show on every single week. You can find them, stonebridgetaxbill.com, or the website stonebridgeiwm.com. And that's where we also have the podcast posted, and now on YouTube.
Yeah.
On the tube.
And we got some good stuff coming. We're going to have a few new calculators. So the tax bill, basically the tax bill calculator is designed to show you your total tax burden in retirement. To give you an idea, obviously it's not going to be down to the penny, so don't hold us to that. But it's going to give you a pretty darn good feel for, what your liability to the IRS might be if you have been operating under what we call the tax-deferred paradigm, which is what 99% of the people who come in our office have been operating under, which is that belief that, hey, you know what, when I get to retirement, my tax rate's going to be lower. Therefore, I'm going to put money into a tax-deferred vehicle like a traditional IRA or a 401k, and I'll get triple compounding interest on my principal, interest on my interest, and interest on the money that otherwise I would have had to pay to the government. And then when I take that money out, my tax bracket's going to be so low that I'm going to end up having exchanged to maybe a high rate for a much lower rate. That's the belief, at least. Unfortunately, we're probably entering a time period where that might not be true. I think in the past it generally has been for a lot of people, but maybe less so today with the state of the balance sheet that our government finds themselves in, kind of what I'd call catastrophic disarray. And so what that tax bill calculator is going to do for you is going to show you, hey, if you just keep going the way you're going, you've got, X amount of dollars in your 401ks and IRAs or pre-tax accounts, and you just take that money out as you need it. Here's roughly what your tax bill will be. And we're going to let you get to sit in the driver's seat in this scenario. So you're going to be able to manipulate the numbers of what you think your rate of return is going to be on average. It's a simplified calculator. What your effective tax rate might be. So not your marginal rate, but your effective rate. So overall, I'm going to pay, let's say 20% between federal and state, or 25% between federal and state on the income that I have coming out of this retirement account. Do you want the government's plan, or do you want to have more of a, I'm going to change my circumstances to better suit my purposes type of plan where, you grab the horns by the bull or the bull by the horns, whatever. I was watching rodeo last night, so I'm a little bit confused on how this all works, but steer wrestling, and those guys, holy cow. Can you imagine hopping off of a horse to grab one of these critters by the horns and twisting its neck around and body slamming it? It's awesome to watch. But and some of the names, like if your name's Tug, you're probably going to win most of the, or Tough, Tough and Tug,
I just think about their spines. They just must be made of Jell-O.
A little bit gummy going there, but really the great thing about this calculator is do you want to I'm going to show you your mandatory tax bill. It's stonebridgetaxbill.com. Your mandatory tax bill. Hey, I can't make you pay less than this amount. This amount you're going to have to pay. But here's your optional tax bill. This is the additional amount that if you just follow the government's plan, this is the additional amount you're going to pay if you keep going the way you're going. And that's why I like to say there's two types of people. There's those that just kind of go through life as a passenger and like, well, I guess if the government changes the rules, then I'll just have to adapt to the rules. Okay, maybe. Or you could be like the other type of person, which is those who take action, right? Take massive action to change their circumstances to better serve their purposes and achieve their objectives. And that's what we're going to be able to help you do by going to stonebridgetaxbill.com. And then coming up soon, we're going to have a calculator that's going to show you, are you taking on the appropriate amount of risk? Are you ready for retirement? What's your retirement readiness score? How fast are you going? Are you still driving on the interstate? The exit's coming up here in the next, half a mile, and you're still cruising at, if you go by my belief system, you age you skate 9 your mind. So you're going 83 miles an hour on I-80. Like, hey, maybe you need to slow down because the off-ramp for retirement is right here. And if you don't slow down, bad things could happen potentially at the worst possible time. So we're going to have some more calculators, so be sure to stay tuned, not only to the radio program and the podcast, but also to go to our website, stonebridgeiwm.com, where you're going to be able to utilize those calculators completely free, complimentary. If you say, well, why would you do that all for free? Well, because if you provide enough value to folks, eventually they're going to be like, you know what? This is stuff I'm not getting from the current financial advisory firm I'm working with, or I don't have one that I'm working with at all. This is a massive amount of value here. I should probably at least consider going in and having a conversation. That's really what we're looking to do, is have conversations with folks about where they're at on the road to retirement, make sure that they stay on the right path. And if they need to tap the brakes, if they need to use maybe some different tools than just the things that they've been using for the same, the same things they've been using for the last 50 to 60 years, well, maybe it's time to introduce a 21st century solution for these 21st century problems.
Sure. And the conversation starts with a quick phone call, 866-295-5146 to call Stonebridge, 866-295-5146. And the YouTube channel, Stonebridge Wealth Systems, right?
Yeah, get after it. Stonebridge Wealth Systems. It's a lot of fun. We've got the TV show we do, and a lot of people, they come to my Lincoln office, they see our studio here, and they're like, oh, that's where you do the TV show. And when we go to a different studio for that, because we got to have enough room for a host and multiple guests and the control room. But we do actually do the podcast. What you're listening to, the radio show, it's in our office. So even if you're out by the Kearney office, we just moved into a new location, 108, First Avenue Place, something like that. It's the old Ruby Tuesday in Kearney.
Yeah.
I'd recommend you just stop by. Go check it out. We've totally remodeled the building. It looks great. It's beautiful. We've got a lot of help from a lot of different people, from our contractor to the gentleman that puts, that puts these tables together and that sort of thing, Rastus. And it really is a place where we want people to be able to feel comfortable, just stopping by and hanging out, grabbing a cup of coffee. We got a fun little espresso machine that we put into that location as well. So by all means, if you're in the area, you're going through, across the state, stop into our office and say hello.
This could be your restroom break. Instead of stopping at McDonald's for coffee and a restroom break, you could just hit all the Stonebridge offices.
Yeah, but we are, in that regard, it's kind of like going to Europe. I don't know if you folks have ever been to Europe, but we do have a little guy that sits right at the entrance to our bathrooms and collects
a
change.
Penny. Spend a penny. Spend a penny.
A few Czech crowns to get in there.
Right. Well, it's good stuff. And the same phone number is the same for any of the offices, 866-295-5146. And I was thinking it is at that, crossroads, if you will. Well, maybe it's just one of those traffic circles, Tim, in life in general. 55 years old, 50 to 55 to 60 years old, it's time to kind of tie up some loose ends and get yourself into that new space of retiring. Everyone's got to retire.
Sure, and it's why we have a retirement calendar that we're going to be providing to everyone who's listening to this program or watching it on YouTube. You can either follow the link if it's YouTube. We're going to have a link in the description that'll get you to our website where you can contact or access our contact form. But just say you want the retirement calendar. It's a complimentary white paper we put together that's going to help you understand the mindset, the shift that's going to be required for you to get into more of that coming in for a landing type mentality when it comes to your financial plan. Because it happens fast, right? It's like,
it does.
You look back, you're like, a second ago I was worried about paying for my kids' college. And now I'm like, oh, shoot, now it's time to pay for my retirement. And there's a lot of different things that go into that. Understanding, like this is 101. This is step one, is understanding what milestones do I need to be aware of. Like you mentioned age 50. Well, age 50 is a big age for retirement planning because it means you can put more money away into retirement plans, but that's changing in 2026 due to the Secure Act 2.0 that's going to augment the way that your catch-up contributions go into a 401k, depending on how much your income is, whether you participate in a 401k or a simple IRA. There's certain ages, if you turn, it's like 60 through 63 or something like that, or 60 through 64 in 2026 and beyond, you get like a souped up additional catch-up contribution you can do. It's like these different ages that you have to be aware of. We put together a calendar that's going to simplify that for you so okay, here's where I need to be aware of additional contributions to my IRAs, to my HSA, which is actually 55 instead of 50. Here's 59 and a half, so I can take qualified distributions from our retirement accounts, which means I don't have to pay a penalty for taking my money out early. Also means that I'm eligible potentially for a in-service distribution, which A lot of people don't realize that once you're 59 and a half, depending on who your employer is and where you work, there's a potential that if you don't like the options, or if you're not satisfied with the limited menu that's available in your 401k at work, you could potentially take that same bull by the horns, right? So now we're back to the rodeo. And you're saying, I'm going to be in charge of whether my retirement is on track. I want more control over that, and I want it to be in the hands of someone who is a seasoned professional. Not like, if you think about it, the shift from pensions to 401ks basically took the responsibility of retirement readiness from these big financial institutions, that's what they did professionally, and placed it on the shoulders of the people least qualified for that responsibility, which was all of us, right? Your regular 401k investor. So we want to shift that back into you having more control. And at 59 and a half, you can do that with an in-service rollover.
Good.
Open up all the aisles to the store. You have a lot more options. You're not limited to just what we said in the teaser there in the intro. It's like, hey, stocks and bonds. Well, no, things have changed. Those days are long gone from that being a satisfactory, sufficient strategy for planning for a successful retirement. So call us. Reach out, make sure you get that retirement calendar, and then let's schedule a time for you to meet with one of our experienced advisors who can help you understand, show you your money in a way you've probably never seen it, and understand where you're at on your road to retirement, where these key ages kick in for you, like what that means for your plan, whether you should be putting more money in, what type of account you should be putting the money towards. We get these questions every day, and I know the folks out there, I know there's people out there listening that wonder these things. But for whatever reason, they're like, well, someday I'll maybe, because most of the time when people call, they're like, I'm listening to you for a while, I know. I meant to call you soon. Just like, let's let 2025 be the year that we take action to augment our situation, our circumstances to better serve our purposes.
866-295-5146. Call Stonebridge, 866-295-5146. It starts now. It starts with you and Tug Kulhanek. 866-295-5146.
Is your retirement being eaten up by financial termites like hidden fees, inflation, and avoidable taxes? Call today for a complimentary financial review so we can help you root out these retirement killers.
Retirement Compass Radio Show, also on YouTube, in case you want to see what we look like. See what they look like. I'm well hidden up in the corner of the view. I've got Tim Kulhanek here from the Lincoln office, though Stonebridge Wealth Systems has offices all the way across the Midwest, and happy to help you. And they'll see folks, just all the way across the Midwest. Northern Kansas, you got a bunch of clients there. And then your clients also, Tim, sometimes have winter homes where they go to other states, and you still help them with their financials and their plans and papers and all those things in those states.
Yeah, or people move outright. I've got clients, quite a few, that have moved to either Arizona or Florida or Texas. And so, it's kind of fun because it means that I need to be more well-versed in the unique taxation, insurance, that sort of thing of those localities. And surprisingly enough, there's actually a pretty good comparison between Nebraska and Florida. And that is that Nebraska and Florida are the top two most expensive states for home and auto insurance, I think, in the country. Or at least they're both in the top five.
Is that right?
Easy. So, very expensive in Nebraska and expensive in Florida. And, I go to these conferences across the country. So I talk to advisors of, I know advisors in Florida and every state basically. And, they say the reason why some of these properties you see in like Daytona Beach or wherever it is, doesn't really matter where, desirable locales that you're like, hey, I would definitely want to move there. They see the price of the house on Zillow and it's like, I can buy, granted there's not a basement, but I can buy more main level square footage for less price per square foot, and 5 minutes from the beach. Why would I not do that? And I've talked to some of those advisors, and they're like, well, you can do it, but good luck getting insurance. And once you see the bill for the insurance, costs, and you won't qualify if you're not a resident. If it's a vacation home, you won't qualify for the homestead exemption. You're not going to get any, discount on your property tax. There's other expenses involved. I almost did the George Bush there. What was it? There's an old saying in Texas, right? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice.
Well, it's so
You're not going to fool me again.
Yeah, and Arizona, it's funny, I don't know who in the devil would want to live in the Phoenix area in the summer. I'm from there even originally. That's where I went to high school and grade school and high school. And it is just the most unforgiving feeling all
It's
summer.
pretty oppressive.
Yeah.
But the thing that is, I just got back from Myrtle Beach, took my family to the beach. We do a beach vacation every year, and it's so fun to watch those little girls playing on the beach and building sand castles, and we do this. I started this 3 years ago, and Lenny was just 2 years old. And we did Lenny Longlegs, where, instead of just doing a mermaid where you build, you cover them in sand and then make a mermaid tail, I made really, really long legs to make it look like she was just very, very long-legged, and we called her Lenny Longlegs. And so Lenny Longlegs made an appearance again this year, but we had a new character join us, and it was Lenny Long Limbs. She said, what if my arms were really long, too?
Okay.
So,
extra work for Daddy.
Yeah, so if you're on our newsletter, I'm sure that there will be a picture you will be able to be acquainted with and introduced to Lenny Long Limbs. Coming your way shortly.
That's fun. Well, I guess my point was, wherever you are in these beautiful places, Tim can help you because he's well-studied. Any member of the well-educated team on Stonebridge can help you no matter where you're living. And to help you also update your documents. I know that sounds weird, but seriously, your state documents. And these things are really important to have in place because each state is different. Am I right about that?
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
Because where I was going is, there's different types of... It depends on what, anywhere you go, there's going to be pros and cons, whether it's financial or climate, right?
Yes.
It's an oven down there in Phoenix, but, the beach is great, I have the beach, but you feel like you're soaking wet all the time, right? Because it's so humid. But the thing that also oftentimes gets overlooked is, well, what if I still own stuff in Nebraska, right? So this is a simple estate planning type of strategy that we see used oftentimes. And excuse me, it's well, if I still own property in Nebraska, let's say I inherited farm ground, like a lot of people have inherited over the last several years, where a lot of baby boomers have inherited farm ground. Or maybe they just own it outright themselves and they move, right? They move. They're now a resident of Florida. They're a resident of Arizona, Texas, wherever. And, it could even be a primary residence. They said, I'm just going to turn it into a rental house, or I want to make sure that I have a home base still because I got grandkids back in Nebraska. How should you own that, right? From a estate planning perspective, you want this land or this property to go to your children when you're gone. How should you own that? Because you've always just owned it, let's say, as a joint tenant, right? So it's joint tenants with rights to survivorship. So it passes to one another just by title, right? You don't need, it's not going to go through your will if something happens to one of the two spouses, because it's just going to automatically transfer to the survivor.
Yes. By
ownership status, joint tenants with rights of survivorship. But what about when the survivor there passes away? What happens then? Well, you might say, well, it's all written out in my will. I just want to go through my estate. It's going to be taken care of that way. And then the attorney will, sort it out with my personal representative / executor, right? You can do that, but you might not need to have, let's say it's a $2 million worth of property. That's all going to be not only probated, right? But it's also going to be subject to Nebraska's inheritance tax, right? So the good news is we were talking during the break about, is Nebraska a good place to retire? They've made some improvements, right? They don't tax Social Security anymore. That's gone. At the state level, there's confusion on this. People are like, oh, well, I live in Nebraska, so my Social Security is not taxable. At the state level, it's still taxable federal. Okay, that hasn't changed. But as far as the real estate goes, they'd be inheritance tax. So let's just say that it's $3 million to make my math a little bit easier, and you have 3 children. Okay, each of them get $100,000 exemption or exclusion, whatever terminology you want to use there. So the first 100,000 is exempt, and then anything over that, there's a 1% inheritance tax. So this is the only asset you had, and they each get $1 million. They're each going to pay 1% on 900,000. So $9,000 for each of them is going to go. There's 27,000 that's going to go to Nebraska's inheritance tax. And it's like, well, but you didn't live in Nebraska. So if you don't live in Nebraska, why is your property being taxed because its tax situs is in Nebraska, okay? Uh-huh. So what people will oftentimes do is they'll set up a limited liability company. That's what an LLC is. It's not a limited liability corporation or something like that. Like it's an LLC is a limited liability company. It only exists on paper in the state that you form it. So it's not like it doesn't have its own tax ID or anything like that. Now you can have it be, it's got tax flexibility. So you could have it set up as a disregarded entity. It just flows to your individual return as a sole proprietor, basically. You could set it up as a partnership if there's more than one member, or you could set it up as a corporation if you're going to operate something, right? So if you're like a real estate operator in the real estate business. My point is, if the real estate in Nebraska is owned by an LLC, and oftentimes people will use either Nevada or Wyoming because of the anonymity that's afforded through establishing LLCs in those states.
In those states, yes.
What you'll find out is that now that's just personal property. So it's not real property anymore. It's now personal property. And so that you're basically removing the tax situs from Nebraska to your state of residence, your legal residence. So if you move to Florida and you own property in Nebraska, but it's actually owned by the LLC, right? You own membership interests in the LLC. That's personal property that should then basically be like grabbing that and removing it from the tax situs of Nebraska, which means no inheritance tax. So like right there, you potentially saved $27,000. And then it goes beyond that. It's like, well, plus, maybe that's, you have a trust that owns the LLC. And so it avoids probate. And there's all these different things that like the costs alone from that strategy could be easily tens, if not in excess of $100,000, depending on the value of the property. So there's different strategies we're using. And that's why, like, I had a call with Frank Maselli the other day. And Frank, industry veteran, he gets a lot into the psychology of money, financial advising and that sort of thing, and delivering messages. And he asked me a question. He said, well, what do you guys do? Are you like insurance guys? Are you holistic? How do you operate? He's trying to learn more about our business. And I said, it's a great question. And I think if I'm being honest, we were basically insurance. I was insurance licensed. I had a life insurance license when I was like 24 or whatever, 23. I didn't know what I was doing, but I had a life insurance license. And if you had a pulse, then I would sell you life insurance. It's like, hey, you look like a good candidate. And then we almost flipped to the other side of the spectrum where we're almost more like securities only. We didn't do hardly any insurance business. And what we found is, and this is my opinion, so you're welcome to disagree, but what we found is it takes more of in our opinion, a dynamic approach to be able to meet the needs of every person who comes through your door. Not every person's going to be the right fit, no question. Like until you come in and tell me more about your story, I don't know if I can help you. I probably can. Like all of us probably have a few things that we could improve when it comes to our finances. But to be a holistic planner, it means you're going to focus on more than just selling investment products, whether it's insurance or investments, whether it's securities or life insurance or annuities. It's more on like these things we're talking about here today, where like I can't guarantee I can make an extra $27,000 in the stock markets. I don't have any idea what it's going to do. So in case anyone couldn't understand me, I said I cannot guarantee that, right?
Right.
Got to be careful throwing out the G word. But like if we just have a better, more effective estate plan in place that ends up avoiding, let's not make your IRAs probatable assets. So let's make sure that the beneficiary on your IRA isn't your estate. That's silly. That's easy to fix. Well, I probably just saved you a few tens of thousands of dollars right there, depending on how much you have in your IRA, because now it's not going to go through probate, right? It's not going to be subject to the Secure Act rule that says, hey, you know what? This was not the beneficiary designation was not to a person with a life expectancy. Therefore, it falls under the non-designated beneficiary category, which means the money has to be cashed out with either 5 years if you hadn't reached a required beginning date, or using what we call the ghost rule, which means the remaining single life expectancy of the decedent. Like all these little things that I'm explaining that I get it. I understand. Most people have no clue what I just said. But I promise you it's a real thing that can and will impact you greatly at some point in time, whether that's while you're here or while you're gone. And having a plan that's been well thought out, that is taking these things into consideration, could be the difference between leaving a legacy and leaving just a complete and utter mess. And that's what we want to help you avoid, is the mess side of it.
Good. I hope that's what you told that fella. We're holistic. 866-295-5146. 866-295-5146.
As Americans, we strive for better. From a better house to a better career to a better life for our children and grandchildren. Better has become the American way. When it comes to your retirement, what does better mean to you? Does it mean more income, a flexible lifestyle, better solutions? A better retirement begins with a financial plan. To get your complimentary written financial plan, call the number you see here. You only retire once. This is your opportunity to plan for better.
Welcome back to the show. Oh, hey, we have music. It's Stonebridge Wealth Systems show called Retirement Compass Radio Show.
You're not going to cut that out? We're just going to roll with it?
Yeah, we're going to roll with it, yeah.
Okay, that's Rick Derringer, for all of you who weren't sure. That
Okay.
Oh, I think I recognize that song right around the 4th of July. Yes, that's right. It's Rick Derringer singing I Am a Real American here on... I kind of sounded like a disc jockey
You
there,
did,
didn't I?
right here on Radio Retirement Compass.
Retirement Compass Radio.
Retirement Compass Radio Show with Stonebridge.
I'm no Casey Kasem, okay, but I'm doing my best.
You're doing good. Tim Kulhanek in the Lincoln office, but, Jeff Gove had to run out to the lake or something. He couldn't appear today on the show. He's in the Kearney office. We have John in the Grand Island office. Who am I missing?
We got Eli. We got Dano. We got Zach. We got Elisa. We got Kelly. I mean, there is a crew here, folks. We're bringing more people on. It's a party.
Yeah. Who's in? Is it Eli and Zach who are in Omaha?
No, Eli and Daniel. Dano is what we call him.
Dano. Book 'em, Dano.
That's right.
Very good. So wherever you'd like to be seen or wherever you'd like to stop by and have some coffee, there's a Stonebridge office for you. I was listening to a podcast by Tom Hegna, and Tom Hegna's one of these guys who, consults with other younger advisors and holds classes and has written many books. One of his books is called Paychecks and Playchecks. And he's kind of an interesting dude. I started following him because he's from my hometown of Scottsdale, Arizona, and he has a home in my college town, which is Flagstaff, Arizona. I don't know how I got all the way over here, Tim, but anyway, that's what happens in radio. You move around. But
Flagstaff, did you ever go skiing out there?
Flagtown, yes. But during my college years, there was not very much snow. So there was, you could take the ski class as part of your PE, but then there was never any snow, so we just went to the pub.
See, global warming ruins everything.
I know, I'm telling you.
But there's snow now.
I know.
So
I don't know. I wish I could get my money back on that. But Hegna has something that he talks about a lot, and that is annuities and life insurance. And one of his quotes from a recent podcast I found him, he said this.
But life insurance has huge tax advantages, tax-free income in retirement.
Oh, that sounds good. Life insurance with tax-free income. Tim, talk to me about this.
Lions and tigers and bears, oh my.
Oh my, tax-free income.
But wait, there's more.
There's more. Hold on.
And so wealthy people hold a lot of their wealth in life insurance.
Now, we kind of already knew that. Really, really wealthy people have passed on their wealth generationally through life insurance policies. And this has been going on since, 20 to 1900. I don't know how long that's been going on. I think Tim's going to look it up on his computer. But talk to me about the value that you find in life insurance. And do you talk to your clients when they come in?
Yeah. So what I was looking up here is, it's well known that politicians tend to hold a large amount of their wealth in life insurance.
Politicians?
And in fact, it was politicians, right?
No
so they're
kidding.
using, because they write the rules, they know where the loopholes are at. They're going to use the most advantageous avenue as possible to transfer their wealth to the next generation, and life insurance is it. Here's the thing. Let's say somebody, take Warren Buffett. I mean, that's too easy of an example. Give me a name of let's do this. Let's go back in time and let's use Howard Hughes, okay?
Fine.
Because Howard Hughes is one of those folks that kind of piggyback on our last segment who died intestate. He didn't have a valid will.
Right.
And he's worth, today he'd be worth tens of billions, right?
Right.
Like super, super wealthy. So of Hughes Aerospace wealth. So like let's say that he wanted to transfer his wealth and today he was worth $50 billion. I don't know what it would be. I could look it up. It doesn't matter. What would be the most effective way to do that? Because you've got the estate tax that they're looking at this new bill that they're going to move it to $15 million per person. You've got portability. You've got to file the estate tax return to make sure you ensure portability between spouses. So you got $30 million as a lifetime exemption amount, right? So it means the first $30 million of assets are exempt, and then you pay 40%. What would be if we went back to the old system, 45%. On basically anything over that. So we're just going to simplify it. We're going to say if you're worth $130 million, $100 million is going to be hit for about 50%. $45 million of that goes away. Okay.
In tax?
In tax, in a federal estate tax. Okay. So what are some tools that could be used? Now we can get really, you can go down a deep, deep rabbit hole here where you can get really, what's the word? Creative, let's say. You can get really creative when it comes to estate planning and using different types of trusts. And there's different things you can do to help avoid things like capital gains. So, for example, if you had a big capital gain in a position that you didn't, like this is going to sound crazy, but some people do this, is there's a strategy where if, let's say you have a big capital gain and you want access to the money, but you don't want to realize the big gain. Maybe you gift that to someone who's your senior, maybe they're in their 80s, and you gift that to them with the agreement that you're the beneficiary of the account. So your cost basis transfers to them, but then when they pass away, you're the beneficiary. And what happens at death? You get a stepped up basis. Like you can get really creative. Okay, I'm not telling you to like gift all of your money to, because then there's obviously a risk there with what if they decide to spend it, or there's somebody finds out that this is going on, they get in the ear of the person, like, you should really leave that money to me. Like, now you're out the money. But the reason life insurance comes into place at this most simple level is life insurance avoids income tax, both federal and state income tax, state of Nebraska inheritance tax.
Oh, baby.
As well as federal estate tax if structured properly. So you got to make sure that you don't leave, like the death benefit can't be left to a beneficiary who is the estate. You don't want to do that. You want to leave it to named individuals, or this is where I was talking about trust earlier. This is an easy example of a trust. It's something called an irrevocable life insurance trust, or ILIT is what we call those.
ILIT, yes. That was on my list.
Yeah, and so what we do is we work with an attorney to set up the ILIT. It's just a trust. Again, it's basically, it's a paper document. So it's a separate entity because it's an irrevocable trust. And there's a process through which you fund the premium for a life insurance policy. The trust itself owns the policy. You don't own the policy individually, so it's outside of your estate, okay? So it's not a countable asset when it comes to things like estate tax. You want to make sure that you don't start with owning it yourself and then gift it into the ILIT, because then there's a look-back period where it could be still clawed back into your estate, which you want to avoid. But essentially, you're gifting dollars to the trust to be able to pay the premium. And what's crazy is I told you about this like $15 million exemption.
Right.
There's no cap on how much your death benefit can be that's going to be exempt inside of an ILIT. So in other words, theoretically, that same person that was going to owe $50 million that I just gave an example of, right, could have a $50 million death benefit inside of their ILIT. And when they pass away, that $50 million replaces every penny that had to be paid out or pays the bill itself. So, like, let's say that $130 million net worth was basically all in a business. Well, like, you don't want to have to liquidate half of $50 million worth of property, plant, and equipment in order to retain your business. That's a terrible situation. Mm-hmm. So here you avoid that. It's like, let's say it's a big farming operation or ranching operation. Yeah. Like in order to be able to avoid that, you could use, among other things, again, it's not, there's no like panacea, like, whiz bang silver bullet.
Okay.
You diversify your strategies, but you could use, among other things, life insurance if you qualify, and avoid income tax, federal, state, inheritance, estate tax, avoid all of that, and you get a leveraging effect where for every dollar you put into the life insurance machine, you get several dollars at your death. I get it. You got to die to get the money, right? But at your death, you get several more dollars back. So there's a leveraging effect there immediately where a dollar might buy $10 worth of death benefit, right? So, and depending on your age, right? Maybe it only buys $2 worth of death benefit, but you're still doubling your money in that scenario, right?
Yes. Well, there's a lot that I was going to ask you. Maybe we need to go into the next segment on this. By the way, you're listening to the Retirement Compass Radio Show with Stonebridge, 866-295-5146, 866-295-5146. And when you get in there to meet with Tim, say, hey, what's that thing you're talking about with the rich people? And I don't want to have to do that. And I want you to tell me how to do that with the life insurance. What about developing some supplemental retirement income using life insurance? How's that work for the average guy and gal and farmer?
Yeah, so it depends on, again, where you're at on your road to retirement, which is why, again, like Jackie said, we'd recommend just giving us a call.
Yeah.
And like we just start with just a 15-minute phone call, no cost, no obligation, and see like if what you're trying to achieve aligns with our kind of core competencies and our specialty.
Okay.
But where people can use life insurance as a more robust tool, this is why it's so popular. I looked this up. Paul Atkins, the new SEC commissioner, owns life insurance. He was sworn in as chairman of the SEC on April 21st, 2025.
Wow. And
he's believed to own around 54 life insurance policies, which is almost 10% of his net worth, which Bloomberg estimates is at least $327 million. So
wow.
A large percentage of his wealth is, in fact, in life insurance. And again, it's for these reasons. It can be a flexible tool. So if it's used properly, like I've got some clients, let's give you a quick example. How much time do we got?
1 minute.
1 minute. So quick example, let's say that you're 54 years old, you want to retire at 65, you got 11 years, and you're already maxing out your 401k and you're trying to figure out where else should I be putting money. You can put money in a taxable account, but you're going to get a 1099 every year. It's the least efficient bucket to grow wealth in. If instead you said, I'm going to put that money into a life insurance policy, if it's structured properly, I like to use what's called an IUL here. Don't get hung up on the terminology. You can use whole life as well. It's cash value life insurance. It grows tax deferred. And when the money comes out, it could be tax free because you take basically distributions of your cash, of your principal, until you've gotten all of your original premium, your cost basis out, and then you take loans. So it takes 10, 15 years for these things to cook, which is why I like to start this early on. But then because it's a loan, you don't pay tax on a loan, you don't pay tax on a return of premium. And so all of it is tax-free as it comes out. And then if you, let's say, die 30 years from now, peacefully in your sleep, having never needed any sort of long-term care or anything like that, there's a tax-free death benefit. If you do need long-term care, if these are set up properly, you can actually draw on that death benefit tax-free to pay for the long-term care. So you can basically become the beneficiary of your life insurance policy while you're still living. So it's a very flexible tool. That's why Tom Hegna is big on them. That's why so many politicians and wealthy people own life insurance. It's gotten a bad name because it's easier to persuade people that something's bad than something's good.
Truly.
If you're telling people that something's really good and beneficial, they think you're trying to sell them something, right? Or that there must be a catch or something like that. And so a lot of the Kinfishers of the world and that sort of thing, the gurus have used this as kind of a cudgel to club their, opponents, if you will, their competitors over the head. But it can be a beneficial tool if used properly.
Here's the number to call Tim and talk to him about it, 866-295-5146. Or Jeff Gove, who's not here, so he will be when you call. 866-295-5146. This is Retirement Compass Radio Show with Stonebridge Wealth Systems.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
welcome back to the show. This is Retirement Compass Radio Show with Stonebridge Wealth Systems and Jackie Selby. So great. I'm going again. Take two. Hey, welcome back to the show. This is Retirement Compass Radio Show with Stonebridge Wealth Systems, and you got Jackie Selby on here with Tim Kulhanek. Tim Kulhanek in the Lincoln office, who is prepping wildly for his 4th of July display, which he does annually. And do the neighbors love you or hate you?
I prefer to stay anonymous for this sort of conversation, please.
I know you put a lot of time and money into it, and your neighbors really do love what you do, but it does take a lot of time, doesn't it? What? Is somebody else in there now?
Zach was in here, so I chastised him. I didn't really. I just, I walked in and he was wearing shorts, and I'm like, dude, what are you, Shavong, the intern from 2016 at Stonebridge? You can't wear shorts. We had this guy, Shavong. He was a student at UNL, and I brought him on as an intern one summer, and I showed up. I told him Fridays were business casual, and he showed up in a T-shirt, backwards hat, and cargo shorts, and he goes, good morning. I'm like, what are you wearing? You said business casual. I'm like, yeah, I did. No, I didn't say wear your freaking cargo shorts and a backwards hat to a professional office, pal. Like, you got to go. Like, you can't do that.
And may I say that flip-flops are never appropriate unless you're on the beach, in my opinion.
Yeah, and speaking of which, could I just give a warning and a reminder to all those folks out there? If you're heading to the beach this summer, just remember that the sand gets really hot, and so wear your flip-flops when you're out. You're leaving the beach. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's been baking all day. Put your flip-flops on, and put them on your kids too, because otherwise they're going to, and if they complain, they're like, I don't want to wear my flip-flops. Well, too bad, okay? Because otherwise, I know what's going to happen is you're going to be crying, complaining about how your feet hurt because they got burnt on the hot sand. So
yes.
Do wear your flip-flops on the beach. Probably don't wear them to work. You could wear your Crocs, but then that just means that you're wearing the shoes that were specifically chosen by the movie Idiocracy as the proper shoe to wear to show a total lack of intelligence, because it's a movie about basically everyone being not smart. If you haven't seen Idiocracy, it's worth watching.
Why are they still so popular? They sell just because
there's Crocs. There's stores that's just a Croc store. It's awesome.
I know.
My kids love them, and I do too. They're cute. But
now there's a new jelly version of it. It's jelly on the top, and then the solid on the. All right. Not that I'm wearing them, not even in the garden. Okay, Tim Kulhanek, talk to me about other tax-efficient tools, things that we could be using pre-retirement.
Yeah.
You got to start this. I was thinking about that HSA account you mentioned earlier. Is this a secret retirement weapon?
Have you been thinking about that a lot lately?
Yes.
Like laying in bed at night, and you're like, HSAs are a secret retirement weapon.
Well, I have to keep on my toes when I'm around you guys.
Yeah. So they kind of are. So I was just double checking because they change these levels every year. So just like when you ask your doctor a question, if they're not sure, they say, tell you what, I'm going to be right back. I got to go check something. They go out and look it up.
Yes.
Sometimes I have to just look stuff up because I can't.
Right.
Can't memorize all of them. But it looks like for 2025, HSA contribution limit is $4,300 self-only coverage, $8,550 for family. And if you're 55 or older, remember I told you about the calendar? Call now, get your free copy of the Stonebridge Wealth Systems retirement calendar.
Yes.
You want to make sure you have that calendar because it's going to tell you when you're eligible to put more money into these secret weapons, these retirement secret weapons. And one of them is an HSA. It's an amazing account, and it's better than an IRA. It's better than a Roth IRA. And it's better than a 401k in one very key aspect. Jackie, can you tell me what that aspect is?
You can use it tax-free. There's no taxes when you use it.
There's no taxes on a Roth IRA.
What makes it better than a Roth IRA? You could use it for healthcare. Well, you could use a Roth on healthcare. I don't know the answer.
When you put money into an HSA, do you get a tax deduction?
Oh, you get a tax advantage putting it in.
Yeah. And does it still come out tax-free?
It does.
So you get a hat trick. You get a deduction, a deferral, and tax-free distributions. And so, one strategy is, let's say that you want to make sure that you want to retire at 63, and you need to fund healthcare expenses from 63 to 65 to be Medicare eligible, and you're not sure how you're going to do it. And you've got a high deductible health plan, but you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna save some money in a taxable brokerage account and have that grow because I don't know if I'm worried about what if I don't use this money in my HSA. Okay,
You will.
first rule is you're gonna use it. Okay, 100% you're going to use it. I had somebody come in and they had like $15,000 in their HSA. They're like, I don't want to put more in there. I'm worried that I won't use it.
Oh my.
Were you thinking that you were going to be the one person that's ever existed in the 21st century that's going to spend less than $15,000 in healthcare? Like, is that a thing we're thinking is going to happen? No, you're going to use it.
People think it's for Band-Aids, and ace bandages and stuff. It's not.
Well, or they had a flexible spending account at work.
That's what I mean.
An FSA, and it was use it or lose it. And they're like, oh, that's not how an HSA works. So here's like a hypothetical strategy: max fund your HSA. So if you're, and you got to be careful here because if you're 65 or older, like you can't put money into an HSA once you're on Medicare.
Right.
So once you have Medicare A, it's no-go, right? That'd be considered an excess contribution. They're going to make you pull it back out along with what's called the net income attributable, which is like the gain, if it's invested or earning interest. So you got to be careful. It's pro rata in leading up to the year that you become on Medicare eligible. So like if you're beyond 65, once you go on Medicare, there's an up to a 6-month retroactivity period where like if you're 67 and you turn 67 on, let's say, June 1st,
yes,
they're going to go back 6 months and be like, oh, well, your Medicare's eligibility date or effective date was January 1st, right? And so you wouldn't be able to contribute at all that year, okay? But if you didn't turn until December 1st, right, and they move it back to June 1st, then you could do for the 5 full months, just not starting in June. And so it's a pro rata for that year. But here's the thing. Let's say that you're in your 50s. You could be max funding this tool, and you want to make sure you have tax-free income. You're worried you might not use it. You only have a few different things that you use expenses for every year for healthcare. Just keep track of all those expenses over time. Keep track of all the receipts, all the premiums you paid. Let's say you just paid out of pocket for these things. You didn't use the HSA money, and all of a sudden you're at retirement and you've got $100,000 in your HSA. Okay, take the money out. You've got the receipts, right? So they're qualified distributions, and now you have tax-free income to supplement your other income in retirement. So, like, again, thinking outside of the box, this is why someone would want to come work with the advisors at Stonebridge, is because rather than doing it the way that everyone else did it for 30, 40 years and kind of using hope as a strategy, like in order to move the needle, especially in the era of AI, like let's be honest, you could go get a financial plan, kind of a cookie cutter one, but a financial plan or an investment strategy put together by a computer. That's been around for a long time, actually. Like robo-advisors, that's nothing new.
Nothing new.
But what can't a computer do per se? It might not know the questions, dependent on the inputs you put in, and then it's just going to pull from other information, research that other people have done. But it can't necessarily ask the right questions. Like, for example, a couple that came in recently, and she inherited some money, and some of it's IRA money. So it's inherited a beneficiary IRA, and it was when her father passed away, and he passed away in 2024. 2023, 24, it doesn't matter. Let's just say 2024.
All right.
Her first RMD is due by the end of 2025, okay? So her first required minimum distribution is due by December 31st, the following year of death.
And that's taxable.
It's taxable, but here's where I'm going with this is she has an RMD because he had reached his required beginning date. He was in his 80s. Which means he had already turned on that trigger of RMDs. So it's like the Rolling Stones. Once those RMDs start, once you start them up, they never stop, right?
Okay.
So she's got RMDs. She was under the impression, and so was her husband, like because there's a lot of ambiguity about this. This is a fairly new law. But literally July 18th, 2024 was when we got the final regs on this December 2019 passed law. So, hey, I got 10 years to cash this out. That's true. So I guess I'll just split it into equal parts and take 1/10 per year for the next 10 years. He died in 24. I got to have it emptied by December 31st to 2034. First RMD being in 2025. I told him that's not actually how it works. That trigger has been, realized. So therefore, you do have RMDs, but it's subject to what's called the at least as rapidly rule, which means we look at your remaining single life expectancy in 2025, and we subtract 1 for every year thereafter. So it was 29.1, right? Then next year is 28.1. And that's what we use as our divisor when we're trying to figure out what your required minimum distribution is. And I said, if your guys' goal is to get these big these big Roth conversions done in the next few years before you reach age 63, because at age 63 is when the IRMA category is going to become problematic, because IRMA's income-related monthly adjustment amounts, the surcharge that Medicare assesses if your income's over certain thresholds, there's 5 of them. That starts at 63 because it's a 2-year look back, and if you retire and you go on Medicare at 65, well, they're going to look at your income in the year that you attained age 63. And so we want to get our conversions done, if possible, before then. It doesn't mean you can't do conversions after that. I'm doing conversions right now for people who are in their mid-70s.
All right.
But not specific advice, but mileage may vary on that. But my point is, I told her, look, let's just take the actual required distribution, not 1/10. Because let's say it's a $300,000 account. It's $30,000 would be roughly how much she would take out, right?
Okay.
But if you divide by 29.1, that's $10,000. So let's not take that. That's an extra $20,000 we can convert of your money.
Oh.
Right? For the same tax liability. So we take the required distribution from the inherited IRA, move more of your money to the Roth, and then after we're done doing our conversions, that's when we'll ramp up the amount we're taking out. Because you're going to retire anyway. I'd rather push that income from the inherited IRA into those retired years where your $150,000 income no longer exists because you're retired, right? You've done your Roth conversions, and now we can use this inherited IRA money we can live on it. And maybe we can actually defer Social Security a couple more years for the higher earner, right? So let's say she has higher Social Security than him and she's a couple years younger. Well, I'd rather delay her Social Security than his, because she's not going to ever step up into his because hers is higher already.
I see.
She's got more longevity. And there's all these different pieces that come into place. But that was all through asking questions and looking for patterns and objectives, which, a computer program probably isn't going to be able to do that. It's
Very
dependent
nice.
on what you put in, not knowing, the other circumstances that could impact your decisions.
Right. The computer's not going to do what he just said. 866-295-5146, 866-295-5146. Call Stonebridge now. Don't be late to this appointment. 866-295-5146.
Did you ever think your retirement would be shared with our government? It's true. Your traditional 401k, IRA, pension, or similar retirement accounts are like a partnership with the IRS. Simply put, they want their tax dollars, and you have them. With our latest tax calculator, you can plug in your own numbers while sitting at home. To find out what your future tax liability could be, scan the QR code or go to stonebridgetaxbill.com.
Hey, welcome back to the show. We're so glad to have you listening today. This is Stonebridge Wealth Systems Retirement Compass Radio Show, and we've been talking quite a bit about these tax-advantaged vehicles, things, ways for people to have more success in retirement, including the HSA. How does the HSA help our farm friends?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, a lot of the folks I work with that are in the ag sector,
Yes.
I mean, in producers here is what I'm talking about. They're self-employed, and a lot of times they'll have a corporation. Maybe it's an LLC taxed as an S Corp.
Okay.
Maybe it's a C Corp, which complicates things. There's some people who are coming back around on that and saying, "Oh, C Corp is the way to go," But most CPAs would probably not advocate for a C Corp, especially putting something like real estate in a C Corp, which I see sometimes, and that's problematic. But no, HSAs, because you're self-employed, like you probably go into, it's hard to say what's even available for health insurance anymore. You might be going to the healthcare exchange. Maybe you got a little bit of a small group plan or something like that.
Yes.
But usually you have to have a minimum number of employees to qualify for that, which can be problematic. So how do you make this so it's affordable? And a lot of times it means you're going to have a high deductible health plan, right? You're not going to be really excited about paying really, really high premiums to try to make sure that you only have a $50 copay when you go to the doctor or whatever, because that's a guaranteed expense, right? And if you're relatively healthy, you're like, well, why would I pay that much? It doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, you could have a health savings account. I told you on the last segment, the maximum contribution is like $4,300 for 2025 for a single. Once you're 55, the year you reach age 55, you can put an extra $1,000 in, $8,550 for family. Again, each person could put an extra $1,000. So if you're a married couple, you'd have $10,550. Pretty good amount. But what I told you last segment was maybe instead of spending that every time you have a medical expense, you use, Dave, forgive me for I am about to say something you would disagree with, but maybe use a credit card that gives you guaranteed cash back of 3-4%, something like that. Maybe use your Costco card or whatever. As long as you can cash flow that, you don't run a balance at all in your credit card. I'm going to make sure I make that disclaimer.
Yes.
And so basically you're paying out of pocket. And instead, you're allowing your HSA money to grow tax-free and accumulate. There's no time limit on when you can use the HSA money for qualified reimbursements. So you keep track of the invoices, the bills, the EOBs, all of that. You make sure you have a file for those things. And then you could take it out as a lump sum distribution as supplemental retirement income. Now, let's say that you're like, I need more of a benefit. We talk about the cash balance strategies we use. If you're in the top 2 tax brackets, that's one place where the tax deferred strategies may potentially still make sense. And that's where we'll use a defined benefit cash balance plan, which could allow you to put, I've seen hundreds of thousands of dollars that can go in tax deferred that can really knock you back to the 24% bracket, which is kind of the sweet spot right now.
Okay.
But a portion of that money could go into what's called a Section 401H plan, which according to, this is from Retirement Actuarial Services, talking about the tax-free medical benefits, it's tax deductible, it grows tax deferred, comes out tax-free.
Yeah.
The average lifetime retirement healthcare premium cost for 65-year-old healthy couple retiring in 2025, covered by Medicare, A, B, and D in a supplemental policy will be $266,589. And if you include like out-of-pocket costs, it goes to about $400,000, so on and so forth. Well, the IRC, Internal Revenue Code, Section 401H medical expense account can currently accumulate up to $632,000, which can be distributed tax-free for post-retirement medical benefits. And so, I've got a couple right now. They're farmers. They had a really good year. He marketed his grain really well, and he ended up in the top income tax bracket for that year. And we wiped out several $100,000 of tax liability by comboing with the cash balance plan with the Section 401H plan, which they've got a few $100,000 now in this 401H plan. It could be used because of their age. They could use it now. It could be used for basically anything. Like if you wanted, hair restoration, you can use it. Like you can do basically anything is qualifying expense. And so, if you wanted to, you don't have long-term care insurance because you didn't qualify and you think it's too late for me to do something like that. Well, here you go. This tax-free money that could be used for that. It could be used for vision, dental, the stuff that original Medicare doesn't cover by definition. So a lot of flexibility there. And again, this is a unique strategy. So it's not something you want to try to don't try this at home. I'm not trying to be like, oh, you have to come to Tim. Well, no, it's just because you literally have to have an actuary in order to set these plans up. And so if you hear what I'm saying and you're like, man, I pay way too much in taxes, and you're paying, let's say, at least $50,000 to $100,000 a year or more in tax liability between federal and state, and you're self-employed, that would 100% be a reason you owe it to yourself to at least call and discuss this with us to see if it makes sense, because it could not only take care of a little bit of your tax problem today, but potentially give you the power of the HSA, which is the most powerful secret weapon, if you will, from a tax perspective. You get a deduction, you get deferral, you get tax-free distributions, but you could talk about putting it on steroids. You could go from $10,550 to potentially $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 in 1 year into that type of account. That's powerful. That's a reason to call.
866-295-5146, 866-295-5146. Call Stonebridge, 866-295-5146. Here comes the music.
Thank you all for joining us today on the Stonebridge Retirement Compass Radio Show with Tim Kulhanek and Jeff Gobe. Jeff, unavailable because he was chasing his shadow, but at the lake. But he'll be back next week. Join us then. Until then, enjoy the summer heat.